Hi everyone. Today we are going to be summarizing books in a graphic organizer that you see on the screen to prepare to write our long compositions on the MCAS. Now, why do we have to summarize books to prepare for the long composition? It's very simple. So, unlike other essays that you will write in class and in college, in the long composition on the MCAS, you won't have a copy of the text with you. So you are going to have to remember important details about the text from memory. I mentioned this a little bit yesterday when we were talking about what makes for an excellent long comp when we were looking at the exemplar. Because remember, in the exemplar, you won't see evidence in quotation marks the way you normally see in an essay. The reason for that is that the writer of the essay is recalling the evidence from the text from their memory. So they are still using pieces of evidence, things that actually happened in the story in their essay, but they're doing it from memory. So it's important for us to prepare to be able to write deeply and in detail about a book by filling out this graphic organizer to help remember those details when we do have to do it on MCAS. So I'm going to walk through an example, and the example I'm going to be doing is The Hunger Games. That's a book that some of you may be familiar with. Maybe you read it, maybe you saw it as part of the movies that were made that were based on the book. Now, it's important, even if I'm writing about a book that was turned into a movie, that I know the exact title of the book and the author. The reason is that I will have to use both the title and the author in my thesis statement when I write a long comp. If I want to score well on my long comp, I need to include those pieces in the thesis statement. So that's why I'm going to include it here. So I'm thinking about the Hunger Games. So my example is The Hunger Games. And the author is Suzanne Collins. So I'm going to include that here. I'll need to remember that for when I write the long comp, both the name of the book and the author. Okay, now we're going to go to main characters and descriptions. And here I really want to think about any character who has a major presence in the book, not just the main protagonist, but any character that gets a significant amount of time and space in the story. The reason for that is I don't know exactly what the prompt is going to be, so I need to be prepared to write about several major characters. Usually the prompt on the long comp either asks me about a character and their development, or it will ask me about theme. So it's important for me to be able to write about a variety of characters. So I'm going to start with Katniss Everdeen because she is the main protagonist. And I want to describe her a little bit here because, again, I don't know exactly what the long comp prompt is going to be, so I need to be prepared to write about Katniss in a number of different ways. So I'm going to describe her a little bit here. She is strong, she's independent, she's the main protagonist or the main character in the story. And I can also say a little bit about, she's a provider for her family. I think that's a good enough summary for now. Next, I'm going to write about Prim. Prim is Katniss's younger sister. Younger sister to Katniss. And she is an important character in the story because one of the major plot points, and we'll write about plot next, has to do with Prim and Katniss. So I want to make sure I'm remembering Prim because I might have to write about her in my long comp. Okay, next I'm going to write about Gale. Gale is, he's rebellious, he is strong, he's a hunter, and he is Katniss's best friend. He also plays an important role in the story, and that's why I'm including him here. I'm not going to write about every single character, but I'm going to write about the ones that have a significant presence in the story, that the author writes a good amount about. Next, I'm going to include Peeta. Peeta he's a baker. He is strong. He's also in love with Katniss, so I'm going to write that. He's also someone who has an important role in the story, and we'll see that in the plot in a minute. Next, I'm going to write about Haymitch. And for those of you who haven't read this story or haven't seen the movie, you might not be familiar, but these are some of the major characters in the story. So he participated in the Hunger Games, and that really had a bad impact on him. So I'm going to say he was broken from the games. He was a victor. He won the games when he was in it, and he is rebellious. And I'm going to write about one more person, and that is President Snow, who is the president of Pan Am. This is the fictional country that Katniss lives in. So he's the president. He's an important figure. I'm also going to say that he is a major antagonist. So he's one of the villains, and it's important for us to know that because, again, I don't know what the prompt is going to be exactly. So now we're going to talk about plot. And when I think about plot, I want to include really major important things that happen in the story. So I'm asking myself the question, what are some major important things that happen in the story that I might need to write about as evidence in my long composition? So I want to start from the beginning, and I'm going to write about the plot kind of in sequential order, in chronological order of the events in the book. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about Katniss. She lives in District 12. Her sister, Prim, is chosen to fight in the Hunger Games, so Katniss volunteers to take Prim's place. Again, that's why I said Prim was an important character, because that relationship between Katniss and Prim sets in motion all the other things that happen in the book. So I'm going to put this in the box in a minute, but then I'm thinking about what else happens in the book. So next, Katniss gets involved in the Hunger Games, which is a contest that happens in Pan Am once a year. And usually there is only one winner. And in this contest, the children from all of the districts fight against each other. The children in the 12 districts fight to the death. So Katniss is good at the games because Gale taught her how to hunt. And then I'm thinking about what happens while Katniss is in the games. Well, the rules of the Hunger Games change, so Katniss ends up saving Peeta, and this happens because Katniss and Peeta come up with a plan in which they could commit suicide, and that would mean that no one won the games, and so the gamekeeper changes the rules, and Katniss saves Peeta, who had been hurt, and she starts to have feelings for him too. So that's why Peeta is also named as one of the important characters. They change the rules at the last minute, so both Peeta and Katniss are willing to die eating berries rather than kill each other, as I mentioned. And the capital, which is the capital of Pan Am, they're the ones who run the games, they let both of them win. And the reason the Hunger Games started is because the districts, the 12 districts around the capital, outside of the capital, rebelled against the capital. And so as punishment, the capital said, every year we're going to do these Hunger Games so that we remember the rebellion and it doesn't happen again. So that's how the Hunger Games started. So I'm going to write that down. Every year there is a Hunger Games in which the 12 districts send a boy and a girl to represent them in a fight to the death. The games started because the districts rebelled against the capital, Pan Am, and this was how the capital punished the districts. So now I'm going to put in the other details that we talked about the characters and what happened in chronological order with Katniss and the sacrifice she made for her sister, and everything that happens with Katniss and Peeta. Now we're thinking about the theme, and the theme here is, what is the message that the author is trying to send? So I'm thinking about, this is a dark story in a lot of ways. It's a dystopian story, but the author is really focusing a lot on Katniss as a hero. And so Katniss is representing this fight against an injustice of inequality. So that's one of the themes. I'm also thinking about ruling others by force and fear will create rebellion. That's what the capital did to the districts, but the districts rebelled. Also, there is a theme about how love can overcome fear in the relationship dynamic between Peeta and Katniss, and the fact that our actions can inspire others, even if that wasn't our intent. So Katniss was a hero because she sacrificed herself for her sister, Prim, and that inspired a lot of other people in the districts also. So I'm going to copy in that information into my chart. I had it written on another page beforehand. So here we go. Those are the themes. So this is what you are going to be doing on your own as you think about books and stories that you have read and you are familiar with that you could write about on the long composition. You're going to be doing this in partners in breakout rooms in a graphic organizer that looks exactly like this. Let's get started.